Hi everyone. Hi ladies. We'll just wait for more people to join before we start today's talk. Okay, hope everybody has had their dinner and are excited about today's talk. Hi Wei. Okay, we're gonna start in a few minutes. Thanks Wei. The beauty of Instagram filters. Okay. All right. Okay. 2 more minutes and then we'll start today's talk. Okay. Before we start today's talk, okay, just want to let everybody know that as per usual, okay, although today's talk is with a professional, everyone's situation is unique, so please do consult with your own doctor, okay, before you use any of the advice given by the doctors who actually have the talk with us, okay. Today's talk is with Dr. Liow from Virtus Fertility Centre. Okay, we're very excited because we have had a lot of talks with mainly doctors, IVF doctors, fertility doctors. Today's talk is with an actual embryologist, and Dr. Liao is one of the best in Singapore, so we're actually very excited for him to actually answer a lot of our questions and a lot of the questions that you guys sent in as well. Okay, so I am going to now invite him in so we can start our session because we have tons of questions to go through with him. Okay, let me add him in. Okay. Let's just give Dr. Liao a few minutes to come in. Ladies, if you have any extra questions, you can type them in the comment section. Hi, Dr. Liao.
Hi, Kim. Good evening. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're still in the clinic at the moment?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming online with us. Okay, so today's topic is basically a very interesting one. We had you online with us a couple of weeks ago, and then it was mainly about PG, PGT, PGS testing. So today we thought that we'd invite you on online to tell us basically what you do as an embryologist and tell us about your team at Virtus. Because we often always talk to the doctors, but we never actually have a chance to talk to what an embryologist does.
All right.
Yeah. So, okay, maybe we can start off by telling us what does an embryologist do?
Well, the embryologist, okay, the word embryologist comes from the word embryo, all right?
Embryo.
In other words, the job of the embryologist is to try to create an embryo or produce an embryo by, fertilizing the husband sperm to create the embryo. So once the embryo has been created, we nurture this embryo for about 5 days to reach a specific stage of development so that we can put it back and allow this embryo to implant and the patient to get pregnant. That's the embryo. basically, if you look at it that way, embryology is like a matchmaker.
Yeah.
I make the good sperm in a good egg.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first thing to do is matchmake, and then 5 days the other we look after your little boy before we put it back. Yeah,
So yeah, like the babysitters of our embryos.
yeah, just yes.
Pretty much. So okay, so let's say first things is, let's say if somebody wants to be an embryologist, how
Yeah.
do they actually become an embryologist?
Okay, embryologist is not yes, it involves a lot. Based in the lab, it involves a lot of lab work, but embryologist is not a technician in this per se. Embryologist over here is professional career, yeah, whereby how to become an embryologist. Of course, the necessary degree, the requirements is basic science degree, basic
Okay.
degree in any biological sciences or biological sciences. That is the basic. And, and then, of course, being an embryologist degree, the embryologist should have the right attitude to work and must be passionate about helping other couples to live, to help them start a family. And that is the basic thing. And then the next, of course, I do postgraduate program for them. So after many years, they are encouraged to go to a master program.
Yep.
Some to become more professional.
Okay. Hold on, Dr. Liao. Okay, the video is a bit choppy. The connection there, I think, is not so good. Hold on, please.
Which connection? My connection? Or...
I think it's your connection.
Really?
Connection. Is there any way we can move to somewhere that has a bit more connection? Because we can hear some of your sentences and then some of it gets cut off.
Oh,
so,
really?
Sorry, is Pearl there?
Yeah, Pearl.
Okay, some sentences we can hear, but some we cannot.
Yeah. Yeah, on and off connection, yeah.
Okay, hold on, let's see if... Okay, so we want to make sure that everybody can actually hear you well, because we have a lot of good questions today.
All right.
Okay.
I go over to the pantry. My pantry,
Thank
maybe
you,
have
Dr. Liao.
see whether there's well, I think it's still the same here,
Oh, actually, let's see. Is it better? You start.
Can you see?
Talk a bit? Yeah.
Hear me? Yeah? Is it better?
It seems to be better. It
seems to be better. Okay. Let me adjust the...
Yeah, get a chair or something. We don't want you standing. It's going to be a long session.
Yeah. I think you're all right. On here? It's okay. I think this one can.
Yeah, we can definitely hear you better, I think.
Yeah. Can you hear me better now? Or
much better. Much better.
And I won't see my handsome face much clearer. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me good as well?
Yes, very well. Yeah, very clear.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so just now we were talking about how you actually become an embryologist. So there's no actual, so as long as you have a science degree, you don't actually go to school to become an embryologist, but you actually have a science degree and you come out and then they'll come for training. Is that correct?
Yes. Of course, before that, a graduate have to undergo interview and by the embryologist whether he or she is in this profession.
I see. For Virtus, where is Virtus actually located? What location in Singapore?
Okay, Virtus Fertility Centre Singapore is located at the Pacific Plaza opposite Shaw Centre.
In Orchard Road.
Orchard Road, yeah, Scots Road, they call it, or Scots Road, Orchard Road area. On the 9th floor.
Okay. And then basically the whole facility is there. So if people go for egg retrieval, transfers, everything is at the center. Yes. So
what happened? Yes. So the egg collection, embryo transfer, fertilization, embryo storage, everything that line, whole floor.
Wow. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Usually, because we would always expect it to be like in hospitals and places like that. So, and how long has Virtus been at Pacific Plaza?
Okay. First, Virtus started operation in 2015, so it has almost 6 years now. Yeah.
Okay. How many embryologists do you have in your team?
Of course, ideally, I'd like to have more. Now, okay, when we started off, we started with a very core number. There is 2 of us. All right.
Only 2. Okay.
And then we slowly expand. And now we have 6. We have 2 more coming in, so have 8 now in total.
8. And then, okay, in terms of on a day-to-day basis, okay, because we know that you have, Virtus has, like, I know on the website it has 8 different doctors that use Virtus, but are there actually more doctors than that who come to Virtus to use?
Okay, Virtus, to maintain a standard, successful standard, we, in fact, not every doctor is allowed to use our facility. So, in fact, we have to accredit the doctor. So the doctor, what happens is that we have to submit the CV first, and then we will review, and also based on the experience and everything, then after that we will accredit them.
Dr. Lee, do you mind coming closer to the phone a bit? Because it's starting to get a bit choppy again. Can you hear? Yeah.
Yeah, I think hear you.
Okay. So that means apart from the 8 doctors that are on your website, basically other doctors can, but they need to be approved first. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
I see. In terms of on a day-to-day basis, how many eggs or embryos would Virtus deal with? Because obviously there are so many ladies going for their basically retrieval and this and that.
Okay, maybe we don't talk in terms of eggs or embryos. We talk in terms of number of cycles.
Okay.
Normally, a number of egg collections per day. Now, per day, on average, you can do about 3 or 4 egg collections per day.
Okay.
4 patients minimum, and then we have about 4 or 5 embryo transfer per day. So, or let's say if we talk in terms of number of eggs collected, say on average maybe about 15 eggs per patient. So we have 4, you have already 60 eggs there. And the embryo transfer, of course, we transfer 1 for each transfer. So there will be only 4 embryos. But on day-to-day basis, sometimes we need to handle in the lab, like freezing the embryos and all things. That depends. So it's every day, probably we handle about maybe at least 200 eggs and maybe about 50 eggs per day.
And then how do you basically monitor all these eggs or embryos and this and that? I mean, is it by eye or how do you guys do that?
Oh, okay. Let's say in terms of, let's say monitoring the embryo development or growth, because you fertilize the egg, and then now we used to be when we used the box incubator. That time monitoring was done once every day or once every day. We pick it out and put them take pictures and everything. But we are not doing that. What we do is that we grow them in a time-lapse incubator, whereby we grow quietly for 5 days without taking them out, and a very natural environment. Just that the camera will record the development for the entire phase of development cycle, and at the end of it, we will compose to a video, and we can review the development of the embryo. So
okay, I'm sorry, Dr. Liow, I'm gonna stop you. Okay, because people cannot actually hear the question. So sorry. Pearl is gonna change your phone, and then we're gonna call back. We're gonna call back, and we'll answer the question again because it's a very good question. Okay.
My phone is...
I don't know. We don't know. We'll try. We'll try and see. Okay. All right. I'll call you back.
Right.
Okay. You guys go offline first.
Right. Go offline.
You can close. Yeah.
Is it because I use...
I'm so sorry, guys. We will get Dr. Liow to come back online because, I mean, the questions are really good and I want you guys to be able to hear the answers to his questions. So just wait for a few minutes and then I will get him back online and we'll see whether the connection is better. And then if you guys have any other questions to add, just write them in the comment section, or if you look on the side, there's actually a question mark box. So you can actually click in there, type your question, so I can actually make sure that I see the questions, and I'll try my best to answer, because we have over 30-40 questions to ask Dr. Liow today. So just a few more minutes, and then let's bring him back online. I'm so sorry. Lately, we've really had a lot of trouble with our connections. It's been a headache. Hi, Sue. Okay, how important is it? All right, I'll make sure we add your questions. Okay, let's see. These connection problems give me anxiety. Because we want to make sure that we definitely have a good talk for all of you guys. Okay, question on embryo glue. I have that question down in my list, so I will definitely be asking him that question. So the ladies who are actually online with us, how many of you are actually patients of a doctor that actually uses Virtus, so that we can actually see something? Hi, Summer. Welcome to our fertility support family, and hope that these sessions are actually useful for you guys. Another thing is that if you guys have any suggestions for other talks that you would like to actually hear us, or other people that you'd like us to talk to, okay, do send in your suggestions, and then we will try to make it work. We will try to figure out how we can get those talks or the people involved to come online with us. So, okay, hold on. Okay, let's send the request over. Did Virtus do natural? Right options.
Hi.
Hi, Dr. Liow, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me well? Is it enough? Is it good?
I seem to be able to hear you. Can everybody hear Dr. Liow well? Is it okay? Dr. Liow, stop.
Yeah.
I think I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you in the same location or a different location?
Now in the consult room.
We're having a tour of your whole Virtus Center.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, okay, back to the question just now, because it was a very good question. How does an embryologist actually look after the embryos? Because so many embryos coming in per day. So how do they look after it?
Okay, now what we use is, look after the embryos nowadays, we grow them in a time-lapse incubator. Yeah.
Okay.
Where, that means that the embryos are allowed to grow quietly for the 5 to 6 days of the development without taking them out to monitor, because there's a camera in there. So the incubator will record all the development, so sort of lighten the load of the embryologist, so that the embryologist can concentrate on other laboratory works. And at the end of it, well, once the embryo has developed to a blastocyst, then the embryologist will review the video of how the embryo develops. From there, the embryologist will select the best embryo to put it back and have a good outcome. Yeah.
So let's say for one time-lapse like video camera kind of thing, how many embryos can actually be inside there?
Okay, now this time-lapse, the embryo is grown in a dish.
Mm-hmm.
In 16 wells, individual wells. So each embryo is grown in one well. All right. So there are 16 cameras on top of each well. So in the incubator, this incubator has 16 compartments. So you put in 6 patients' embryos without and without any risk of matching, and because there are also QR code identified to tag the embryos. So the risk of mismatching is not.
Yeah. So in terms, let's say, so one patient's embryos will go in. So I'm on day one. Does the whole time lapse or the incubator have to be all same day 1 to day 5, or can they be like mix and match?
Match. That's it. Yes. Day you have one. The next day you have yours will be day 2, but let's say the next day one, the day 1, so the report is different, individualized. It's highly computerized. Yeah.
Interesting. And then in terms of, let's say, when it becomes a blast, does the machine actually tell you that it becomes a blast, or do you still have to look at it?
We look at it, we monitor it. In fact, we can.
So on a day-to-day basis, you guys will look at it.
Yeah, we just click on and see whether how they grow and everything. And it's the blast. Then we look at whether when this blast is ready to be frozen, because we do a lot of frozen embryo transfer. Yeah. So look at that. Okay, nice. Just please we take it out and then we freeze. Yeah.
So interesting, basically, because I mean, I guess on our part, basically, we will only know when we receive like a message or whatever that, oh, you have how many day 2, how many day 2, and I tell you, those few days, the anxiety is so high because you're just waiting for the phone call or the message from you guys. Yeah.
Yes.
But we do not. So, like on a day, like, do you guys have to work long hours, or is it basically a very standard 9 to 5 kind of job?
There's no 9 to 5 job here because the embryologist practically actually 24 hours on call, meaning that, okay, basically what happens in the daily routine for the embryologist is that at 7 o'clock in the morning, the embryologist have to be here because the first egg will be 7:30. So the embryologist have to make sure, prepare the things for the egg collection or IVF at 7:30. So now, in between, while waiting for the patients to come, while waiting for the procedure to start, the embryologist will review the yesterday's one, was fertilization, how many embryos frozen, all the. So now, then, of course, during the day, egg collections and then sperm preparation, and freezing, and fertilization, and time. So that depends on the workload for the day. So generally, we will finish, depending on the cases, like 6 o'clock in the evening. And sometimes for me, if I have about 6 or 7 collections for that day, 7 patients, and depending on the severity of the case, they will work until probably 10 or night to finish all the cases.
Wow. So it's actually a really long day.
So it demands a lot from the embryologist. That's why to become an embryologist, you have to be dedicated with passion to it.
Yes. Correct, because it's really looking after. I mean, it's really helping people grow their families and this and that. So you really must have the passion, I guess, to help people.
Yes.
In terms of the experience, okay, so how important is experience? Because let's say when it comes down to choosing a sperm, okay, let's say for ICSI, all right, apart from, like, do you guys use technology, or is it really based on the experience of like seeing the sperm and this and that to choose the good best sperm for the fertilization?
Of course, we will choose the best sperm to go in. But of course, the training of the embryo, they spend about at least half a year just to work with sperm, how to differentiate the sperm from best sperm, and how to separate out the good sperm from the sperm sample so that you get the sperm. First part. And when it comes to doing select the sperm at a lower magnification, whereby you lose sperm. So what I do here is IMSI, whereby the sperm is magnified for ICSI maximum 400 times. For IMSI is 1,200 times, so that you can see the sperm. So from sperm eyes, see whether there are holes. If that means that sperm is good, you have to reject it. So all those things. So it's not it's the that is very important to choose the best sperm.
So basically, as long as you can see the sperm, okay, then you'll be able to choose the best sperm. So that's why the not exceed the other one. Is it IMSI?
Yeah, IMSI is more IMSI, the selection is more stringent. So as I always tell my patients, I look for the most handsome looking sperm to get into PSA. To maximize.
Okay, I see. So an embryologist needs at least half a year to be able to recognize a handsome sperm.
At least half a year. That's the basic only. But over years of doing training, acquiring the knowledge, yeah.
So basically, based on how long have you been an embryologist for? I forgot to ask you.
I'm one of the pioneers in this. I graduated actually when I first joined US at that time was more into cytogenetics, but I went in was a vacancy for me. So professor just got his first Susie patient pregnant, and I just wanted he needed someone to assist him, so I went in there without anything. So from there I started scratch. That time ICSI is still no, it's not in the picture yet. So it just started. Now my experience, I have 30 years experience. I started IT, so about 31 years.
Wow, so 31 years. So the baby that you helped make, what is probably now 31 years old?
Help me because ICSI, the first ICSI baby born was in 1992. So now the baby, I think it's about baby lah. So it's a adult in the 20s already.
Yeah. So you never know, you may be helping a mother, the next generation and everything.
Oh yes, probably yes.
Amazing. Okay, in terms of IVF centers, okay, because obviously there's Virtus, there's also basically IVF centers in like KKH, NUH, all the different, and other private ones as well. Is there a difference, basically?
In terms of basic IVF, in terms of laboratory, everything is the same, but approach is different and philosophy is different in the sense that how the skill set, how the embryology is trained. Because now the embryologists are trained, they're based on how their seniors are being trained. So now in the government hospitals, because the workload is so much, so their philosophy is that okay, maybe we just go to day 2, day 3 and do the transfer. Is not the case.
Yeah.
But over here outside, because we group blastocysts, because now that standard, even with a single embryo, you should go to blastocysts. Because if you go to blastocysts, means that the embryo is good, a good chance to plant. So different centers have different way, and some centers may growing the embryos to blastocysts. They just do the day 2, day 3, the earlier part of IVF.
Understand. But okay, let's say when an egg is retrieved or an oocyte is retrieved, basically, can you actually differentiate good oocytes and bad oocytes just as soon as they're retrieved?
Yes, as soon as they're retrieved, you see. Now, when you retrieve the egg is enveloped with cells in there. They call it the cumulative cells. Yeah. Now, these cells are one of the functions of these cells is the nurturing cells. They provide food to grow. Now, it all depends on how well spread out the cells. So, if the cells enveloping the egg, that means you can see that this egg is not competent, it's not mature. But if the cells are all well spread, what we call a sunburst, right? Yeah. That means the egg is ready, mature. That's how we can differentiate. But let's say now, of course, these eggs, once they're collected, they are not inseminated, fertilized straight away, because you still need them to be completely competent. There's a machinery inside. They're still not ready for fertilization. So usually we grow them in an incubator for about 4 hours so that they can mature. So once the egg has been 4 hours, then we will process the egg proper by itself. Unfortunately, I don't have the pictures to share with you in Instagram. If it's a Facebook, probably. But then from there, you look at the we look at the cell, look at the egg, then we look at the consistency of whether the what we call cytoplasm, whether granular or whether it's homogeneous, whether it's diluted. From there, we can grade the embryo. So the embryo is recent. Just that all those things are. So a lot of grading, visual assessment.
So in terms of, so just now you said that, so if they retrieve the egg and it's not ready yet, you guys will actually help to mature the egg, is it?
Now, yes, of course, yes. So within 4 hours, so those eggs, they are not fully mature. 4 hours of incubation, they have probably the maturity. All right. So what we do is that we can do what we call IM, in vitro maturation, whereby we grow the embryo for about hours after egg collection, and maybe they then will fertilize. But that is very
interesting. In terms of, okay, so from what you said just now, because you are able to tell whether the oocyte or the egg retrieved is good or bad, how come not all eggs will get fertilized?
That's a very good question. All right, because now there are a few factors here. Now, if you were to do, let's say, IVF, IVF means making the egg. So you allow natural fertilization. Yeah, but that depends also on. So you see, when the sperm are attaching, it needs to drill a tunnel through the eggshell. So that depends on the eggshell itself, whether the eggshell is thick or whether the sperm is to penetrate. So let's say out of 10 eggs, probably get 5 or 6 that can be fertilized. The rest fertilized because the sperm can go in, or there's something that inhibits egg is not mature. Now, as for ICSI or IMSI, you inject the sperm in. Right? Now, that depends on a few factors. One is that, assuming that the technique of injection is properly done, okay? And
yeah.
Now, the sperm, that depends on the sperm. Now, the sperm carries a messenger protein, all right? So now, assuming, I'm just telling you now, that as a sleeping baby, all right? Because it is sleeping. So waiting for.
Okay, sorry, Dr. Liow. Sorry. Okay, we cannot hear you again. Okay.
Oh.
Hold on. Yeah, suddenly the connection has gone again. Some of the ladies
Oh,
say,
again.
We've lost the
Can
connection, cannot hear properly. Okay. Yeah, that's why it's suddenly gone off again. Pearl, I think is gonna change phones. I think this time. I'm so sorry.
No worries, okay. No worries.
So we'll go offline. We'll quickly go offline, and then okay, Pearl, you wanna settle it, and then we'll come back online.
Okay, sure. All right.
Thanks, Pearl.
Okay.
Okay. So sorry, ladies. Okay, we really want you guys to make sure that you guys can hear. So hence the on and off. Okay, I'm receiving questions. Let me see what else I can see. Okay, I'd like to ask the sperm, the size of it. Okay, all right. I will ask. Actually, I'll ask your question. Okay, Sarata, I've got your question in my list already. Expect to. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's go. Let's try this again. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm so good answer, Chris. Pinky, I've been telling him. Okay, let's see. It will be recorded. We will make sure that we save the recording on IG. Okay, Dr. Liow, is this better?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Good. Yes, I can hear you now.
We should have
I don't know what's wrong. Yeah. Okay, I think if you sit a bit closer, we also can hear you better as well, a bit louder.
Okay.
But I hope you're comfortable. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Really, actually speaking very loud now.
Oh, yeah. The whole center can hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
It seems okay now. Okay, well, let's try again. Okay. So okay, back to the question just now again. So when you actually see a oocyte, right, and if you as soon as you see it and you know that it's kind of not a very good embryo, okay, will that usually give you the final grading? Can you kind of tell that it's not going to be as goodly as good graded as one that looks good at the start?
You're talking about the egg or the embryo now?
The embryo. Let's say a fertilized embryo. As soon as okay, no. Let's say that as soon as you retrieve the egg, it doesn't look that good, but it still fertilizes. But you can tell that, as you said, the rays and this and that. Will that usually affect the final grading?
Yes, yes, because egg quality has an effect on the outcome of the quality. So if the egg quality is not that good, of course, obviously, in the end, you wouldn't expect a good embryo. Now, even let's say it happens to give you a reasonable embryo for you to transfer, and if the implants, there's a higher possible risk of miscarriage losing that embryo. So that's why, to me, when I tell my patients, egg numbers, yes, is important, number of eggs collected, but the most important is the quality of the eggs. So as long as the quality is good, you have a good chance getting a good egg. That is only one aspect. So coupled with the sperm, you select the best sperm, and then you maximize the chance of getting a good egg.
So in terms of sperm quality, is it assessed by the motility, or how do you see it? Does it have to look nice or swim nice, or what is the main thing that you assess it?
Of course, we find Olympic swimmer, but very difficult. Okay, now people, if the sperm swim forward and very active, that means the sperm has a lot of energy. And then, of course, then from there, we will select the sperm based on maybe the shape itself. But if the shape of the sperm is not handsome, I pick one. But as long as the sperm content inside the head have no holes, it should be okay. Because there are holes in there, that means DNA has been damaged. So that's one aspect.
So you can actually see the holes in the sperm?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
You can attend the we have what do you call it, public information education in September. You can check on. I'm one of the speakers that you can see the pictures of the slides. How
Interesting. Okay, we will share it with our followers as well. So send me the details. Okay, in terms of men who have severe, let's say severe OAT, where very low number of sperm, very poor sperm quality, would that affect? Has there been times where you cannot even find one good sperm?
Well, good sperm in terms of shape and motility, they are. But if it's very severe in terms of that, yes, you may not find any good sperm. But and again, I said, as long as the sperm DNA quality is good, she has a good chance. But the thing is that when men usually have a severe OAS, usually the DNA quality of the sperm is affected. And that if you use that to fertilize the egg, and there's a chance that the embryo development may not be good, or you can get very fewer good embryos. So what actually over here we do is that instead of using ejaculated sperm, we get directly from the source itself, from the testicle. Yes, but opening the testicle, okay? Without opening the testicle, we just go in a needle to go in, suck up a few of the sperm tissue, and from there we have enough sperm to fertilize. And it has been proven very, very, very well.
How often, in terms of percentage, would you have to go through that method to get the best sperm?
Okay, first of all, it depends on, let's say, we look at it, okay, let's say it depends on the clinical history. Let's say the patient has tried 1 or 2 times IVF cycles elsewhere, and it failed on C. Then from there, we will look at it. Okay, since you have gone through 2 times using the ejaculated sperm, you can't, very likely the DNA quality is affected from the ejaculated sperm. So we go down. And usually nowadays, even now, the men here have very, very low sperm count.
Correct, yes.
The source, yeah.
I see. I'm sure men do not enjoy having that done.
Well, I would say that because the husband seeing his wife going through all these things, he's very supportive, most of them.
That's good.
And it's not a very painful procedure
Okay.
because it's local anesthetics is applied to them,
Okay.
and the procedure only takes probably about 5 to 10 minutes, and then that's it.
That's
Finish.
quite fast.
And he can go home, go off already. But of course, he'll be very sore. But he'll have to take care for a few days now.
Okay. So it's
not
not
to
as
run.
scary. It's not as scary as it sounds, or
Yes, 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 yes.
In terms of, let's say, okay, so let's say we have an embryo, and by the time it reaches day 3, okay, it doesn't survive. Okay.
Okay.
Is there any way to say, oh, it's a sperm issue or it's an egg issue? Is there such thing? Because we have heard of some people say, oh, if it doesn't last past day 3, it must be a sperm issue. But is there any truth in that?
Okay, first of all, we have to look at from the beginning of egg stage before we inseminate. So if you look at the egg quality looks good, so it will not be an egg issue.
Okay.
And if we look at the sperm, let's say the sperm, the quality maybe bad, then you look at the DNA, because before that the sperm will have assessment have been done before the procedure. So the DNA test sperm, we look at it. And also, let's say in our case, we do INSEE, when we find a lot of sperm has holes in there. So if the embryo arrested at day 3, that could be the sperm factor. Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
But let's say if the egg is not very healthy, not very good, then if the sperm is good and the arrested at day 3, it most likely is the egg factor itself. Now, why some of the embryos get arrested on day 3?
Yes.
Now, you see, the embryo as it grows, at every stage of development, it does self-correction. Okay? When the sperm gets into the egg already is doing some correction. So I'm going to just highlight to you a bit. Right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say, because an egg is a marvelous entity. Because when the sperm gets into the egg, the first thing the egg will do is not to become an embryo. First thing to do, the egg is to do housekeeping work. Meaning, yes, fantastic. Like a lady at home, sometimes they
Yeah.
So when the sperm gets in, if there's some slight damage in the sperm DNA, the egg will try to repair the damaged DNA of the sperm first before it becomes an embryo. So if the damage is very minimal, a few percentage, 2-3%, no issue. So the egg can correct the mistakes, give rise to a healthy embryo and a healthy pregnancy. But if that sperm that had more than 10% of its DNA damage, so what happens? The egg will need to spend more time, more of its resources, meant for embryo development, but use it to repair the sperm DNA. So most of the time, it cannot repair the sperm DNA completely, but it still needs to become an embryo. So because more time, more resources taken to repair, so there's a delay in the embryo development. And if more resources used, so the embryos, the day 3 I don't have enough resources to carry on, it stop growing. This is one of the reasons. Another thing is that during, let's say, fertilization, there are a lot of errors in there. So now, as I mentioned, the embryo, let's say, has 4 cells or 8 cells stage day 3. But not all the cells in the embryo are made equal. There may be some cells effective, I mean in terms of genetics, yeah? So if there out of 8 cells, maybe 2 cells are abnormal. So that what happens is the embryo will push these 2 cells away, and then get the healthy cells to become the baby. And those cells may push it to become either a placenta or just push it in the rubbish bin. But if that embryo has more than, let's say, 4 cells or 6 cells that are some unhealthy genetic makeup in there, so what happens? The embryo says, oh, I cannot continue because it's not there. So a lot of factors. Yeah? It's one or two of the things that happen.
Interesting. So just now when you said that basically sometimes because it needs to repair itself first before it fertilizes, does that end up in a day 6 blast instead of a day 5 blast? Is that one of the reasons or no?
Yes, it could be one of the reasons because it takes more time to correct the mistakes. So there's a delay in the cycle. So it takes more time to reach to the blast.
That makes so much more sense because sometimes we have questions say, is a day 5 blast better than a day 6 blast? We have no idea on how to answer it. But in your opinion, is a day 5 blast better than a day 6 blast?
Yes, in equal terms, day 5 blastocyst definitely is better than day 6 in terms of implantation. It doesn't mean that we are writing off day 6. Day 6 still can give you a healthy pregnancy, but the chance of getting implantation is lower than day 5. So on average, let's say in our situation, day 5 blastocysts have about 70% chance of getting implantation.
70%.
All right.
Okay.
For a day 6 embryo, probably about 40% or 50%, depending on the quality of the embryo.
Understand. Okay, so there is a difference. Okay, but
Yeah.
okay, but still quite okay. I mean, would you say a 6AA is better than a 4cc?
4cc, definitely you can't do anything anymore. 4cc means all the cells, majority of them are not surviving. So you put it in, there's definitely no implantation. If you have a 6AA means the quality, 6 means indicates to you that the embryo is already hatched out of shell. Yeah. A, the first alphabet A is the quality of the cells that form the baby.
Quality of the cells that forms the baby, okay.
The second A is the cells that form the placenta. So this A means the best grade, the best grade. The 6, or the 6 tells you the size of the embryo. So the 6 means the embryo is already hatched out. So the minimum number in terms of digit is 4. 4 onwards. Yeah? All right?
Oh, so 6 doesn't mean like day 6, no.
No. It's 6 means it's already hatched out from the eggshell and then it's ready to implant. But that one is a very stage. Yeah.
Would a 6AA be better than a 4AA?
I would say 4AA would be better than 6AA.
Okay.
Because 6AA, once it's out of the shell, is very sensitive. So when you do the transfer, the doctor do the transfer, you have to be very, very gentle.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's better that it hatches inside than outside.
No, what means that inside the womb. Yeah.
So there's something called assisted hatching. What is that?
Yeah. Assisted hatching came about many years ago, whereby you see the eggshell can be, some women may have eggshells that are very thick and very compact.
Yeah.
So it's too thick. Naturally, the sperm cannot penetrate like Great Wall of China. So the sperm cannot go in.
Yeah.
So this, and then some papers already say that if you grow the embryos outside the body, the eggshell tend to be hardened.
Yeah.
So very difficult for the embryo to stretch it and break the eggshell out. So assisted hatching means that you create a crack in the eggshell. It's just like the baby chick. All right.
You crack it.
If you got to hatch, you go to pack up the eggshell and then you go hatch out. But if the eggshell is too thick and the chick is trying to pack and cannot break the eggshell, eventually it get tired and die inside. So what we do, assisted hatching, means in order to help it to hatch out, you use something to crack the eggshell so that the chick can easily hatch the eggshell.
Interesting. Okay.
Use laser to create
laser.
Laser, yeah, not the Star Wars type of laser, it's a microscope. Okay.
Oh, so you use the laser to crack it. So do you crack the whole thing or just a little hole?
Yeah, not the hole, to thin out a portion of the eggshell. Thin it out. We are not going to pamper the embryo. We're not going to drill a hole to allow the embryo struggle a little bit to come out to be better. To me, that's how I believe.
Interesting. So make them work a bit hard for it, right? Work a bit for it.
Yeah.
In terms of, let's say an embryologist, let's say if an embryo, can an embryologist actually help an embryo develop? Because I know I've heard something about sometimes they can add protein and this, but is there such thing where if it doesn't really want to develop, can you guys help it?
There are a few reasons why the embryo cannot develop, as I mentioned earlier. It could be because of improper handling of the egg or embryo in the beginning that causes embryo, or it could be probably some genetic problems already inherent in the embryo that prevent it from growing better. Now, in fact, in the current situation, the embryos are grown in culture medium, where all the nutrients are there. So now the culture medium now is so advanced that it has a lot of all the nutrients that are required for the embryo development.
So, how to allow the embryo to grow better is that, okay, it's tender loving care, meaning the conditions inside. We have to make sure that the conditions are ideal or optimal for the embryo development. So that's when you say, when you handle the egg or the embryo out, handle it within a short time and make sure there's no sudden change in temperature and all those things. So that's why when we grow the embryo in a time lapse, this minimal handling, that way can help the embryo to grow quietly without disturbing it.
After an embryo, or let's say an egg is retrieved, how fast do you have to fertilize it and how fast do you have to get it into the incubator?
Oh, okay. You see, now once the eggs have been collected, right, there'll be a dish in the what they call a crib where the conditions are all optimized inside for the egg, for the embryo, but for the egg itself. And the medium that we use are what we call a buffer medium, whereby there's to avoid sudden change in the pH, alkalinity or acidity of the embryo. So the medium is usually slightly alkaline. Yeah? All right? 7.2, 7.4. Yeah? So now that medium is a buffer. So once you put the eggs in there, after collecting the eggs already, then the eggs are transferred into another dish where there's no pH buffer to allow them to grow inside the incubator. So that is very fast, maybe about a minute transfer and then put in the incubator.
Oh, so fast.
Yeah.
In terms of like the lab, the room that you are in, does it have to be very cold, like really air conditioning, or is it just normal?
Ideally, the embryo prefers 37 degrees Celsius.
Oh, okay. So that means your lab is not exceptionally cold.
Now we have to make a compromise with the embryo lah. We have the discussion with. So in order for us to work, we have to have a 25 degrees Celsius compromise you know.
So good for you, also good for the embryo.
Yeah, compromise but we handle the embryo, make sure that there's no sudden change in the temperature within the embryo itself. That's why the handling is very important. Yeah, from the stage to the embryo is very fast. Yeah, within a certain period of time. Very short, 1 minute, 2 minutes.
Interesting. We're learning so many new things today. In terms of follicles, okay, so when the follicles are in a woman's body, does the follicle size equate to a good embryo? Like the bigger it is, the better the egg, or there's no correlation?
Okay, the size of the follicle will somehow correlate with the maturity of the egg, the quality, not the quality, the maturity.
The maturity, okay.
Okay, so now let's say if you grow, now usually the follicle will grow from very, very small, maybe less than 1 mm, and eventually after a few days of stimulation, by maybe usually about maybe day 8 or day 10 of stimulation, the size of the follicle will probably reach a 16 millimeter or what. Then the doctor will say, okay, that's nice, go and do a trigger, and 2 days later, so by then the follicle will have grown to 20 mm already. That's nice. So the smaller the follicles will tell you the egg, when you collect those eggs, let's say less than 16 mm in diameter, usually those eggs are not nice. Those that are collected beyond 16 mm is okay. But if the follicle is too big, 24 mm diameter, so very likely you get an egg, but the egg could be post-mature. Quality may be affected already, over aged egg, so it will not be good.
So then we also very hard to fertilize, is it?
Not hard to fertilize, it's just that you may get fertilized, but it may not give rise to a good embryo.
Understand. In terms of the, so let's say, what is, out of all the eggs retrieved from a lady before from Virtus, what is the most number of eggs that you have actually retrieved from a lady?
Well, okay. Now, let's say about olden days, right? Quite olden, no dosage control and everything. Last time, the more eggs you get, the better it is. You can get 50 eggs. You're very happy. Doctor very happy to tell the patient, oh yes, 50 eggs.
Yes.
To me, it's not good. Yeah.
Okay.
Because more eggs you like, yes, the number is there, but the quality of the eggs is compromised. So my ideal, if the eggs that I don't really encourage, in fact, don't encourage, is that sometimes over here, but not all the time, about 60 eggs one time. Yeah, for one 60, 60.
60. Wow, okay.
Yeah, that is
But
too many.
out of the 60, how many were actually good quality?
I would say usually about half the number.
Okay.
Yeah. So from the 60, I have to do a strict selection of the eggs. Yeah.
Okay.
Eggs. So ideally, the egg number that be good will be about 10 to 15 eggs. That'd be good enough. As I mentioned, the egg quality is more important than number. But then again, of course, you have some women who have low egg reserve. But as long as even you have one egg, as long as egg quality is good, I'm happy, because I have come across a lot of women like that, and one generate one blastocyst and one baby.
Yes.
Yeah?
That was going to be my next question. For you to assure the ladies who have low AMH, who only come out with, sometimes we have a lot of ladies that tell us that I only have one follicle that have retrieved one egg, and they're so worried about it, but it happens and they can still get a blast and still get a baby. That's right?
Yes. What they need to do is that probably they may need to go for a few egg collections to so-called bank the egg first. We call it embryo bank. Have enough embryos, let's say four embryos, then start to plan for embryo transfer.
Understand. So there is hope. Just because you have one follicle doesn't mean anything. Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of embryos being thawed, okay, day 3 or day 3 or blastocyst? No, sorry, frozen or fresh? Which one is better?
Okay, I mean embryo transfer you're talking about.
Yes,
between
embryo transfer.
And frozen embryo transfer. Now, now over here, Virtus, we mainly do, in fact, frozen embryo transfer. There is a reason for that. So let's talk about the fresh embryo transfer first. Yeah. Now, when the woman goes into IVF program, the first 10 to 12 days, she will be injected with hormones to get the follicles growing and all things. So after the eggs have been collected, the hormones are still retained in the body. Okay, so now let's say 5 days later you have a blastocyst and you're going to put in, but the hormones retained in the body. These hormones can also affect the environment inside the uterus. So the environment is not so conducive for the embryo to implant. Now, secondly, the side effects of the hormones can cause your lining of the uterus, the endometrium, to age faster. So in 5 days, after supposed to be 5 days old, but it may age to 6 days or 7 days. So if you put in a blastocyst 5 days into a 6-day-old lining, it may not get pregnant. All right?
Yeah.
Thirdly, because majority of women who go to IVF is a highly emotional stress.
Yes.
Because once you start, once you start the first injection, you'll be wondering, how many follicles are growing? Are they growing well or not? After collecting the eggs, how are the eggs? Are they okay or not? All the way, all very stressed. And what more, you are very working, then suddenly you fall from, or you must cut and transfer, drop off everything and come. So all this stress level can also compromise.
Yes.
And then because the environment is not so conducive, even if the embryo implants, the fetus may not grow as well as should be in the quiet. So that's why majority of the babies born from fresh embryo transfer are usually born smaller, and most of them are born premature. All right. Now, when it comes to frozen embryo transfer, totally different. So let's say the earliest the woman can come back for frozen embryo transfer is the next menses after a collection. So after a collection, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, menses come, then she can approach the doctor. Hi, doctor, I want to do my embryo transfer. So what happens is the doctor will just give the lady 2 weeks of estrogen pills to take, and then 1 week progesterone, and also the doctor will prepare the womb, make sure that the lining is at least 8 mm, and also to track the follicle, the leading follicle, either ovulate or induce it. So now ovulation is day 0, from ovulation, the lining is synchronized with the embryo. Because the medication is so mild, the environment is not very still quite close to natural. So with a 5-day-old or 5-day-old lining, I know embryo, the synchronized medication is very. All right.
Yes.
Now, another thing is that because the embryos are frozen, the frozen embryos are in hibernation. That means they're sleeping, they are not going to get any older. So let's say for a 5-year-old woman, yeah, she has a few embryos frozen. Let's say 3 or 5 embryos frozen. So the embryos will be 35 years forever. They will never go old. So in other words, she can plan her time not to rush to do the embryo transfer as and when she's mentally and physically ready. So let's say with COVID situation, after that, open borders for us to travel. Let's go travel first. Enjoy. Then and plan for the transfer. If you put a transfer, then you go out, you will not enjoy what you the holiday. Yeah, that's one thing. Now, because the environment is right close to natural, the fetus will grow very well inside the uterus. So majority of the babies born from frozen transfer, they are as healthy as those babies born, and majority are full-term birth. And that's why now globally it going toward frozen. Yeah.
That's very interesting. The fact that basically, because no other doctor has actually told us this before, that basically fresh transfers have more premature babies. That's a very interesting point. And it is a very valid reason to go for a frozen transfer instead of a fresh transfer.
Yes.
In terms of when an embryo is thawed, right? How do you actually thaw an embryo? Do you just like take it out and then thaw it? Or obviously, is there a method to actually thaw it?
Okay. First of all, let's say, let's talk about freezing the embryos first. I think the technology is the reason. Now, there are two methods of freezing the embryos. One is known as the slow freezing method, whereby you use a machine. This is an old method. Where you use a machine, it takes about 1.5 hours to freeze an embryo. The latest freezing method is vitrification, or what we call super fast freezing. And it's done, ultra fast, super fast freezing, where it's done manually by highly trained embryologists for that. Okay? Now, to prepare the embryo for freezing, the embryo is just like our body, 80% of the of water. So first of all, we have to remove as much water as possible from the embryo. So what we do, we put the embryo in a very saturated solution so that water from the embryo is leaked out into the surrounding, and the solution has these compounds that protect the embryo from extreme low temperature, because you're going to freeze the embryo with nitrogen. So this phenomenon is called osmosis. It's a natural phenomenon. So, but osmosis is not efficient. There will be some water retained when equilibrium is set. So now, if you were to use a slow freezing method, and it takes about 1.5 hours to freeze, water that is retained there often becomes ice, because from room temperature, let's say 25 degrees, to go down to minus 196, 1 minute down. So the ice will form inside the embryo, and the ice can kill the embryo. So when the survival rate of the embryo is 50% or less. Okay?
50% or less, okay.
All right? But in terms of vitrification thing, just like you try to remove water, that's a quite similar method. But the main difference here, other than the manual part, is the time. So towards the end of the dehydration process, what happens is that the embryologist will pick up this embryo, put onto the receptacle, less than 1 minute, in fact 30 seconds, and plunge it directly into liquid nitrogen. Very fast. All right? Pop, pop, very fast.
Wow.
The time is so short that whatever water that's present in the embryo has no chance to become ice at all. It has become a very transparent glass-like entity. So it's what we call, if you know physics, like gases, that's solid, now gas. It's in what we call a vitreous state. So now, when you take out this embryo out, we don't use the word thaw because there's no ice in it. We use the word to warming
it up.
Yes, and then put into a solution to rehydrate it. So the survival rate is at least 95%. Most of the time is. So that's how the embryos are frozen, and then they get that.
How they are warmed.
Warmed, yes. And
interesting. So the 5%. Okay, so there's still 5% that something could go wrong. But usually, will the 5% go wrong when there's originally something could have been wrong with the embryo?
Okay, now the 5% in Virtus itself, in fact, is always about almost 100%. It's
Okay.
99. The reason why we claim 95% is because in everything is 5% error. Yeah. So what we worry about is that sometimes when the ministry MOH come and audit us, so you say, why claim 100%? Okay, 5% error, 95%. Good 100%. That's what I
Okay,
always
but
tell.
so far it's been 100%.
Yeah, most of them. I mean, I would say 100%. Yeah, very few. In fact, 1 or 2 instances where the embryo didn't die completely, but it's not very good because the embryo that was frozen, the quality wasn't as good, already not good when it's been.
Understand. In terms of okay, even one lady asked us this question today: how long can an embryo be stored for? So let's say it is frozen. How many years can we leave it there for?
Now, once the embryos have been frozen, as I mentioned, is in the state of hibernation, they're frozen in time. So in theory, they can be frozen for generations. But of course, we're not going to give for generations, right?
No.
So there was a time where the MOH limit the number of years the embryo can be stored is 10 years. So we still 10 years. That is enough time for the couple to start a family. Yeah. Nice, yeah.
So what is the oldest embryo at Virtus? How many years?
We have only 6 years of in operation, only 6 years, yeah.
So 6 years. So you actually do have embryos that are still 6 years old.
Yes.
On this class.
Yes.
Interesting. So let's say a lady has decided, okay, I think my family is complete now. Okay. What does she do with the remaining embryos?
Okay. What you do, there are 3 options that we can give to the patient, to the couple. One is, of course, donation. Donation to a childless couple, anonymously.
Okay.
You can do it. All right? Secondly, donate to research work, to help in the development of understanding more about the embryos, how to develop their procedures and all this stuff. Thirdly, is just to dispose them, to discard it. These are the 3 options. But always, couples, don't think about all these things yet until you complete the family side. Then you can come and give us the options. Yeah.
The majority of people who have decided out of the 3 options, what have most of them actually decided to do?
Unfortunately, most of them decided to dispose their embryos.
Okay. All right. But do you actually have people who are, I mean, just now you suggested donation, okay? Which is very interesting because we don't actually hear of that very much. But let's say, so that means they are not essentially donating just an egg. They are donating the whole embryo. Is that correct? And
Correct.
in terms of Singapore's law, is allowed?
Yes, allowed. In fact, we have some couples who come forward that they want to donate their embryos to childless couples now. And we have a lot of requests from childless couples wanting for the embryos that have been donated by these couples.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
So that means if there's a couple who is actually like totally unable to have a child, they can actually go to Virtus and ask whether there are donated embryos.
Yeah, so they go through our panel of doctors, and then from there we will try to match them in terms of the color, the race, whatever it is for them.
Very interesting. Okay,
but
all right.
I to stress is that for those couples who are willing to donate the embryos, they have to go through what we call a counseling session.
Yes.
To make sure that they are really, want to donate the embryos. And for those couples who want to receive the embryo, they have to go through a separate counseling session so that it can be assessed by a counselor that they are ready to accept the embryos. Yeah.
Because I guess it is a very big step to say that, okay, basically one of my children is probably out there somewhere and this and that. And I think in Singapore being quite conservative, I guess your biggest worry is that when they're older, will they meet, we always have this kind of question, will they meet the other, like your child, they meet the other child and this and that. So I mean, I guess that's why counseling is so necessary.
Yeah, it is true, but in over here in Singapore, even let's say if we imported donor eggs or whatever, there's a limit to it. So one couple can only give as long as the maximum 3 live births. If there are 3 live births from those group of set of embryos, then we cannot donate. If there's some excess embryos, we cannot release that for donation.
Interesting. So that means if the lady has had, let's say she's already had 2 kids, she can only donate 1 more out.
What I mean is that 3 kids from the cohort of embryos that she's donating.
Okay. So there is an actual limit. So I guess that's how they control the number of, yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. In terms, okay, somebody asked us about transferring, let's say, frozen embryos from one clinic to another. Okay,
yeah.
or one hospital, let's say they want to go from one clinic and they want to bring it to Virtus, okay? Is there any danger of it, basically, anything happening to the embryo, or how is it actually done?
Of course, okay. Now, in terms of risk, the risk of transporting from one IVF center to another IVF center, especially in Singapore, the risk is minimized because the transport is carried out by the embryologists who receive the embryos.
Okay.
So sorry.
Oh dear, no. Drink some water.
No, okay. Now, the couple has given consent for that clinic A to release the embryos to Virtus. So Virtus have to coordinate and give consent for Virtus to receive their embryos. So the Virtus will have to contact the clinic A there to arrange a time. So when documents all settled, what happens is that the receiving clinic, Virtus, will get a container that is filled with liquid nitrogen.
Okay.
And then bring it over there. So from there, the other clinic will bring the embryos all in liquid nitrogen. Then what happens? The embryologist will check the details of each straw. Make sure that the straw is intact and no damage. We do not accept. So after that, we put into the transporter with liquid nitrogen, and then bring it back safely into the Virtus.
Okay. So they definitely have to do a check first to make sure that it's all okay before they actually transport it over. Interesting, because we always thought like, okay, I pass to you and then you bring home, that kind of thing. So no. Okay. It's reassuring that actually it gets checked first and to make sure it's the correct one. And then so let's say if I have 5 embryos somewhere else, can I choose to just bring 2 over, or do I need to bring all 5 over?
It's up to you. You want to bring 1 or 2 is over, it's all over. It's up to you.
Because everything should be individually frozen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of your job, okay. One more question before we get to that one. What is embryo glue? We often hear people talk about embryo glue. Is it really a glue?
Okay, embryo glue has been in the market for a very long time, almost 20 years now. Now, as you know, the glue means that you coat embryo with this sort of physiological glue in the hope that it can stick to the endometrium so that the embryo can implant there. Well, I don't strongly advocate that because actually very strong marketing thing. Yeah. Okay. Companies spend a lot of money, research, and do that and try to sell it. In fact, the company that tried it, they know me. I don't because it's very expensive for a woman, for a patient to pay for it. Anyway, what happens is this. Now, embryo glue. The content of embryo glue is there's a protein called hyaluronic acid. Okay. They cover the surface of the endometrium or even the eggshell itself or embryo shell. So what happens is that from there, first of all, is that before the embryo is transferred into the patient, the embryo will be soaked into this glue. So they coat it with this glue and put it back in the hope it will stay. But then again, yes, it can stick. But what happens if the embryo genetically is bound not to be good. Instead, it may not implant. If it implants, you get miscarriage.
Yes.
So it wastes money. So in fact, the company has given me samples to try on many years ago.
Okay.
In fact, allow me to try for 30 couples, 30 cancers. But when I tried up to 10, I said give up. No, don't wait. There's no significant benefit. And
so it's really just a gimmick at the end of the day.
to me, but some patients believe in it, some doctors believe in it. But to me, there's no need. Over here, we don't use embryo at all.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess some patients, I mean, at the end of the day, they think that whatever can help. So thinking that basically, oh, if it's a glue, if it can stick, it should be good. So okay, but that's why we ask this kind of questions: that is it good or not? Okay, somebody asked us just now, what makes an embryologist decide, okay, so whether an embryo is abnormal and not recommended for transfer? So let's say it has become a blast, okay? So let's say even if you have a 4cc, 5cc, will you still recommend to transfer it, or would you say, we know it's not going to work, better don't do it?
Yeah, we strongly recommend not to transfer at all, with a 4cc or 5cc, because already the cells are not viable at all. So if we put it in, there won't be any implantation at all. Yeah, but let's say it happens to implant, it will be just a biochem pregnancy.
Okay. So how about, let's say, so 4cc you would say don't implant, but 4bc, let's say a 4bc or 5bc, would you say it's still okay?
There's a possibility, yes, it can implant. And in fact, live birth has been produced from this BC embryo. But of course, the chance is very, very low, less than 10% or even 5% chance.
Okay,
yeah.
So just now we asked you the difference between a 4AA and a 6AA, right? So people are asking me, how about a 4AA and a 5AA? Which one is better?
Oh, well, okay, 4AA means the embryo has already reached that stage that can be transferred. It's quite fully expanded. 5AA means it's slightly bigger in terms of the cavity itself, and it's about to hatch out. So if you have a 5AA and a 4AA, I would say either one will give you a good chance of getting a good outcome. They're quite similar.
Okay, so there's no big difference to say that as long as you have something that's AA, honestly, like 4 or 5 is usually quite good.
Yeah, AA, of course, AA again nowadays, because it's all these embryos are graded by visual, so you look at it AA. So sometimes it's quite subjective. One embryologist may grade it as AA, the other can be AB or B.
That was one of my questions. Basically, at the end of the day, who decides the grading? And can it, like different IVF centers, let's say, can NUH give you a different grading as compared to Virtus?
Yes.
They can, okay.
Do grading, we have a few embryologists to sit down, look at the grading, and then from there we come to a consensus, which is the correct grading. Now, because with the embryoscope, so the embryoscope has an AI in there, time-lapse incubator. Yes, incorporated AI. So this artificial intelligence can help the embryologist to choose good embryo, because the AI has been trained to recognize good embryos for at least 10,000 embryos over. So from there, recommend this embryo for transfer, let's say. But the final decision will be made by the embryologist.
So these machines are honestly quite smart in the sense that they can kind of detect.
It's as smart as how people build it, that's all.
Understand. How about day 3? Okay, do you know how like NUH has a different grading for day 3? Like good, very good, good, average, satisfactory. Whereas I know different IVF centers have only good, average, satisfactory. It's also different grading, right?
Yeah, you see, the thing is that like good, excellent, good, or above average, or all those things like that. It's because it's general for the patients, not to confuse the patient. But in the laboratory, we grade it in terms of, let's say, if we have an 8-cell embryo, all right? So 8 cell, 8C is a cell, G, 8, can be 1, grade 1 means excellent. Grade 2 is a G2, means average.
Okay.
G3 means poor. All right. So this between, let's say, sometimes you have G1-2. That means it's above.
Okay.
The dash 3 means it's below average. So we don't want to confuse the lady. So that's why we just put the good, average, or poor, something like that.
Very straightforward instead of getting us even more stressed than we need to be.
Yeah, then like, how come some number 6, some number 8C, some 6C, 4C?
Yeah. Correct. I mean, I think IVF is already stressed enough, so all these are additional stress. In terms of, okay, one final question. Okay, as an embryologist, what would you say is your most difficult part of your job?
The most difficult part of my job is to deliver the not so good news to the patient. Let's say, sometimes, the patient will have one egg, and in the end, when I just prepare the egg for before fertilization, I can find the egg is good, a lot of holes in them or not good. So I have to tell the patient, then I say, your egg is not good, I can't fertilize it. Yeah. Or you fertilize the egg and grow the embryos. Unfortunately, in the end, there are no good embryos for freezing or for transfer. Then you have to tell the bad news. That is a very difficult thing.
Understand. I mean, I think it's always hard to deliver bad news, but I mean, I think as long as we know that it was in the best hands possible already, I mean, and you guys would definitely try your best to help the lady get the best embryo as they can.
Yes, we always do our best. All embryologists. Yeah.
Okay, one final question. How many babies do you think that you have actually had a hand in helping become a baby, or how many embryos have you actually touched to this day since it's starting out? Any average figure?
This is a very sensitive thing because when it came out in the newspaper one time, the reporter claimed that I have helped in a few thousand babies. Then I was to have a coffee time with MOH. So
okay. So this shall be a secret, but we definitely know that you have actually helped to make many babies in Singapore.
Yeah, years or 31 years of practice. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Liow. You have answered so many questions that I think a lot of ladies don't actually unable to actually get an answer for sometimes, because I mean, as we said, we often talk to IVF doctors, but the way they explain things or their focus is very different, and sometimes it helps ladies to understand the process better of how their embryos are growing, how my eggs are fertilized, and this and that. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we wish you all the best in all the embryos that you touch, and we hope that you have even more babies ahead in growing more babies. Yes,
thank you. Before I end, Kim, in fact, I also have this session with whoever wants to know, let's say, call it chat session.
Okay.
They can either have a person-to-person discussion with me.
Okay.
This is FOC because to me, I want to help couples to understand what they're going to go through or what they have gone through, to explain to them what could be the problem, the next step, the next thing to go forward to. So they are always welcome to make an appointment to have a chit-chat session with me.
Okay. So they can contact you at Virtus. So contact Virtus and then request a session with you?
Just at the reception, then from there they will try to book a schedule for this chit-chat session.
Thank you so much. That's really very kind of you, because I mean, in Singapore, it's really, I mean, ever since we started this Instagram page, this Facebook, the website, we have realized that there are a lot of ladies who need the support and need help, but unfortunately there isn't that much help out there. So doctors like you, basically, who offer these kind of things, honestly, it's very nice of you to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for, to help. Yeah, that's my passion. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. We hope that you managed to train more embryologists to have the same passion as you. And in terms of today's session, I think that a lot of ladies who go through IVF, they've always thought, okay, next time I want my son or my daughter to be an IVF doctor. But now they can think, okay, embryologist is also the way to go.
Yes, embryologist. Yeah, is in fact I always tell my those interns who come in, an embryologist is like a doctor in the lab.
Yes.
We look at how the eggs are, how the sperm are. And even before that, we look at the clinical history of the patients first. So from there, we will see how best we can give them a good outcome, the best outcome. Yeah.
Correct. Because I guess they are the one who administers to help you grow the follicles. But when the eggs come out, basically it's out of the doctor's hand and out of the patient's hand. So it's really in your hands how the embryo grows and this and that.
But we look at it this way. We look at it as a teamwork.
Yes.
So I always tell my patients, we work as a team. The couples are the most important team members. We doctors, embryologists, the nurses, even the reception, or even our housekeeper in Virtus, they are part of a team to make the environment that is better and a good outcome for our patients. Yeah?
Totally makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Liao, so much for your session. I'm sure that we'll receive a lot of messages today because every time we have a very good session, we have a lot of ladies messaging us to thank us, and we will send you all those messages as well. But thank you so much for your time. We've taken 1.5 hours of your time, so you need to go home soon.
My pleasure. It's okay. Yeah, I like it.
Great, thank you. So if we have any other questions, we'll send them to you as well, and then we'll get your answers and then share them with the ladies as well.
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Liao. Have a very good night and have a great weekend ahead.
You too. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you, ladies. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.